I'm the one with the mic on, right?
Yeah, if
Okay.
you do mic and audio.
Okay, sounds
And then
good.
you our co-host HBO share screen to YouTube.
Uh, yep,
Cool.
that's good.
She's working on it. You don't have to go for this. Because I saw like that. It is highlighted artificially probably. Oh yeah, you watched something like in my sense of not and it looks red. You won't see red up there, but it might be a little squished because it depends on like which.
Yeah, that's like the
Just that one.
yeah, no, that's totally fair.
It helps you figure your eye also will point that before reading the rest of me. So
Sorry, I'm just pulling up various documents and stuff. Just give me a second.
It is a convention. Birthday. Yeah. I'm gonna start this out.
Okay, so I think we can get started.
Okay.
So we have two things I think on the agenda. One is you'd be pleased to know we have a proposal for Article 17 today.
Oh, great.
So I don't know if you wanted to do that first, and then we can talk about ground rules for bargaining bull book. So yeah, I will just hand that over. Put it up on the screen.
Added the drum.
Yeah, yes, for sure. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're not on the drive
Yeah,
actually.
we have just like the bargaining drive, but not anything else.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
you guys
yeah.
were talking about like the full constitution, but Switch does not have access to that.
The Constitution is online actually
Is it
on the GAU
Ah,
website.
okay, so I didn't know
Um, but there might be a PDF or something as well. So okay, so I will introduce the edits that we've made here. So basically, the previous language is intact, but we've made two additions, one to 17.1. Basically saying that Article 17 and Appendix B, which relates to dues deduction, are invalid and unenforceable unless Chapter 2023-35 Laws of Florida has been enjoined, repealed, struck down, or amended in such a way that permits dues deductions by public employers for this unit, after which the language in this article will take immediate effect. And to the extent that dues deductions for this unit are authorized and permitted by Florida law, the university will engage in dues deductions. And we have another addition and on the other side of the page on 17.6. Actually, SB 256 allows public employers to petition the Public Employees Relations Commission to waive the prohibition on dues deduction. And from what I've been told, Broward College, actually, the faculty there are still getting their dues deducted from their paycheck because the administration there actually did make that petition to PERC. And that wasn't even negotiated, they just did that out of their own accord. So in 17.6, it says the university agrees to petition the Public Employees Relations Commission to waive the prohibition on dues deductions, as is their right per this new law. And the university agrees to submit this petition no later than 30 days after we come to an agreement. So those are the two main things that we've added here.
Question, you may have some as well, but I know I have a question on the final sentence of the first edit.
Mm-hmm. And that's also supposed to kind of address if the petition is accepted by PERC.
I get that. I guess I'm a little confused as to is the intention of the last sentence to serve as a waiver of the content of the article to conform automatically to whatever's allowed? It makes me a little concerned the way that's worded. Because it says to the extent that dues deductions for this unit are authorized and permitted by Florida law. Well, what if the way that they reauthorize them is fundamentally different from the rest of the article? Like how would we resolve? What would be the process by which we would resolve and saying these are the ways that you have to do it, which isn't what's in here? You just don't like what would be
So anything that is not illegal according to Florida law would apply automatically, and anything that is like a gray area or would still be kind of affected by the law would be subject to impact bargaining as per Article 24 again.
Maybe it's adding something that university will engage in dues deductions as it's more.
I'm sure. I'm just worried about creating a problem by. Is the intention that if it's deemed legal, the way it's deemed legal, that would have to be another conversation. I'm not exactly sure I understand it.
So like let's say like the court arrives at a decision and like 17 all of the articles are allowed except for I don't know, say 17.3 or whatever.
Right.
So all of the other articles go into immediate effect, and then we like according to Article 24.2 will or 24 we'll have to reopen that part of the article in order to address whatever is still illegal according to the decision.
Yeah, I guess let me say what I'm saying a different way.
Okay.
How is that different than what we tried to do this? I guess is because it seems to me all we're doing is we came up with a provision that would extend your protection if it was overturned. It seems like you want even more protection that you're not already entitled to, but the process has to stop. So I guess I understand that this is a pretty sort of granular legally sort of a semantic sort of a thing. If you have an opinion, I'm a little confused as to what the purpose of that sentence would be. Because I can't imagine we would be empowered to unilaterally conform to the law because we've already had a disagreement about what the law even says. Like we haven't been able to come to an agreement in terms of, in the context of our contract, whether or not the prohibition, like that's been the whole point of the disagreement so far. I don't know if this really resolves that disagreement.
Well, our point has always been that the law has been challenged is being challenged in the courts, and as a result, either all or parts of this article may be valid again in the near future.
Sure.
And therefore we don't want to bargain again if that happens. We want the current language to go into immediate effect if that happens.
I think you've been very clear in terms of that position.
Right.
I guess the university position continues to be the contract doesn't allow you to say because it's in the court, we don't want to do it. And I realize that
it doesn't allow it to say it's our bargaining position that's what we want. And
say that again?
it's our bargaining position that even though this is currently invalid, if some court process makes it valid,
right,
we want it to go into effect.
Yeah, I guess let me say what I'm saying a different way. I'm interpreting this proposal in Article 17 as you want a backdoor waiver, even though it's not explicit. What you're really asking for is a waiver on Article. That's the way I interpret this. Because Article 24 lays out exactly what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, it's supposed to. It's what we're supposed to do is enter into negotiations and arrive at a mutually agreeable agreement, right?
Yeah, and it specifically says if there's something in the contract that is currently illegal,
and it becomes
and then a law changes, it becomes illegal. It becomes legal or canon again immediate. So how could we be waiving something by saying that we want exactly what a sentence in that thing?
See, that's I don't read that you have that language in 24 that you just articulated. You don't have that language in 24. There's other contracts that do. I don't think your version of 24 has.
I'll just read it out. I'll just
Are allowed.
Right.
So, okay, so what is your interpretation of Article 24.2? Or actually, first of all, Jacob, can you read it out loud and then can you please tell us what your interpretation of it is?
Should be 24.2.
Yeah. It's on the screen now if you want to read it from
Okay,
there.
Effect of passage of law. Any provision of this agreement which is contrary to law, but becomes legal during the term of this agreement shall take immediate effect upon the enactment of such legislation.
Mhm.
That is literally exactly what we were saying we would want to happen if they came to that.
Enactment of such legislation on the decision of the court.
Correct. That's a pretty fundamental difference. You use.
So it
inclined
has to be
appeal
a
struck down.
legislative, would the court not make a legislative change, like
The
by,
courts don't make it,
no, but wouldn't it invalidate the legislation as well?
but it's not the enactment of the
leg-
legislation would then have to pass. They would have to amend that law, the
Well,
legislation.
It would.
So I would,
The legislation would not be enforceable if
And
it was.
then if they then, which sometimes the lawmakers do, sometimes if the court issues an opinion that they don't, that is contrary to the law, lawmakers will sometimes then amend the language of the law to kind of be in line with what the court's decision was. So then maybe next session. So say Judge Walker does something that amends the language of the law, and then next session, the lawmakers say, okay, well, now we're gonna amend that law to be consistent with Judge Walker's opinion. That would be how I kind of do that, because that's enacting legislation. Those two issue it. Which is why we, in our last offer, kind of tried to put that privilege in there. Not currently in your contract about, I'm just trying to find our last offer, but. Cause I think,
Yeah, I mean, we can, so here's what we'll do. I mean, we'll
We'll look at- I mean,
look at it.
I understand what
We'll talk
you're,
about it.
I understand what you're getting at. I don't
Right.
think anybody's, I think we're all trying to get at the same thing, but just kind of. In different ways.
Right.
right, and I think, I mean, the point that we are taking away from 24.2 is that the agreement does allow for certain provisions to be contrary to law for the time being. And that's why, I mean, even though in that specific article, it refers only to enactment of legislation, we put in the extra language about, being enjoined, repealed, amended, etc.
I don't agree with the first part of what you said, because I think the agreement is explicit, that it doesn't allow there to be provisions that are contrary to law.
It literally says that.
Is contrary
In
to
the-
any provision of this
And
agreement.
but you're not reading 24.1.
I did read it.
Which says it's
Not-
rendered invalid by subsequently enacted legislation.
It's in.
Requires that to impact,
But
Yeah.
it's still,
Like we're doing right now.
right?
Yeah.
Leaving the language in there is not. It's still, okay. I mean, I understand what you're saying, I just don't, I don't agree with what you're saying.
Yeah,
I
sure,
understand what you're saying.
sure, that's fine.
All right. We'll have some more discussion about that. Back to you.
Do you want to caucus about that now, or should we move on to, okay.
See, that's not a short conversation.
Okay.
All right. So what do you want to move on to next?
Yeah, so I mean, I wanted to ask you how you wanted to do this. I mean, we have some ideas for ground rules that we would like, and I'm sure you also do as well. I don't know how you want to go back and forth on this.
So I think there's a couple of things that we've discussed. We've discussed 10 things we'd like to just kind of talk about.
Mhm.
The first one is we forward to you, sent to Rachel back in May or June sometime. That was the updated and amended version of the contract. And the intention was to incorporate the previous paid leave MOU and the previous compensation article. So, I just want to make sure that we're all working from the same document.
Mm-hmm.
So I had sent that, I don't know if you guys want to review that. We could, just to make sure we get a thumbs up, because once we have that master document, I would like to split it into its various article things, put the line numbers on it, and then we can talk about the articles individually. That would be my suggestion, but I know that you may want to, I don't know if Rachel ever talked to you about that or whatever else, you may want some time to review it. There's not many changes, there's a couple small things in there, but most of it had to do with the paid fee provision and to update Article 10. Because it wasn't a full book, like whole change, it was just the reopener stuff that had
Right.
incorporated,
Right.
so.
So sorry, what was the question?
I
Whether,
think that before we can really start, I think we have to acknowledge and agree upon what is the master document.
okay,
Because if we're starting from document A and you're starting from document B, then it's gonna be difficult. There's not a lot of significant differences.
right.
But I do think it's important that we agree on what is the current complete four corners of the contract.
Sure. I would think that the updated CBA would include the last agreement for Article 8 and Article 10 as soon, I mean, the previous agreement for Article 10 and then the latest agreement for Article 10 when it's after it's been ratified.
Right, I haven't put the one we just TA'd in there because it hasn't ratified.
Right.
So the one that I sent you had all the previously ratified agreements, and it was my attempt to move the adjusted and edited, but at the end of the day, there has to be a final moment at which you look at them side by side and say, yes, that document now contains exactly what we agreed to, and give it a thumbs up. I mean, in some respects, it's perfunctory because you can look at what's been posted on the HR website of all the various MOUs,
Mm-hmm.
but it is kind of an important moment at which you say, yes, that does exactly represent what we previously agreed to as a starting.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had a chance to look at the actual document. I'm kind of skimming through it right now. It looks right. I mean, so I mean, I can't tell you right now that like yes, we agree to that, but like from what you're saying, I think we shouldn't have any issues.
Yeah, all I'm asking is that before we get to the next one, please verify that that is in fact what we kind of, and if you find something that isn't right,
Mm-hmm.
just shoot me an email, let me know, because we're gonna have to resolve any of those things before we can really kind of get going, because so the next part would be, once we get an agreement on what the contract would be, to just go through, add the line numbers and split them into individual articles, line them all up as separate documents, and then we can sort of do you want me to just kind of go through what I'm suggesting, or do you want?
Yeah, please. We're all new to this, so we have no idea.
My recommendation would be that we start the discussion, once we get that sort of done,
Mm-hmm.
get it all broken down, is start with a discussion with going through the list of any articles.
So sorry, just before you go ahead, so we're gonna hold our ratification vote for the latest agreement on Article 10, September 20th to 22nd. Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you know what the timeline is on your end, for ratifying?
I don't know when the DOT, we kicked it over to GC's office, but I don't know when the next DOT meeting is gonna be. They could consider it if you ratify. I'll find out, I'll get you the name.
Okay. So I mean, I'm just wondering, like, so let's say we agree to what the CBA is, and that has the old agreement for Article 10, and then say, it's ratified, the new agreement is ratified on both sides. Like, what happens
We
then?
could just wait, I mean, I wouldn't suggest we start with Article 10.
Yeah, no, sure, yeah, sure.
So, yeah, just start somewhere else. Like I said, once we break it into its pieces,
Mm-hmm.
we can just change just that one,
Sure,
if and when we both ratify it.
sure.
Because I think there's enough other stuff for us to sort of dig into in the meantime.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that gets done by both sides, then we can say, okay, let's just look surgically at Article 10. Do we agree that this represents exactly what we agreed to? Yes, okay, now we can go ahead and tackle that one.
Okay. That works for us. I mean, I think, yeah, you can go ahead, but I just want to let you know that like we have not as a team had a chance to, I mean, we've been discussing different aspects of the CBA, but we have not gone, very thoroughly article by article, and like we haven't determined what our priorities are just yet because we're still doing our research, we're still brainstorming different ideas.
Okay.
So if you want to get into the specifics about like, when we should do every article, I don't think we could give you that
No,
today.
I'm
Yeah.
just gonna recommend overall process.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And then talking about how we get to identifying what we're gonna do what.
Okay.
We should do Article 4 on this, like I'm not.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to make sure we're on the same page.
What I would suggest we do is, once we have it all broken down. Various teams look at, are there any articles that we don't have any proposals? On? To do those first, because that is easy. If we can, like, neither of us have any proposals on the article, then we can just TA that really quickly and we can sort of put that in a file. And we can sort of move on. It's a good way to sort of get some of it sort of off our plate in a short period of time. And then next, I would suggest as a second category, we can have the articles that we both have interest in. Like we both have things we want to bring up, and for example, like the paid leave thing, we've already talked about the fact that we have work that needs to be done on that quickly because there's changes that result from that. So like, for example, take that one and tackle it quickly. Because we both have an interest in that one, but there's probably also going to be in the third category, there may be articles that you want to bring up that we don't have, and or we have that you don't. I would do those third, last. The only exception, maybe being Article 10. But you know, that one always takes a while anyway.
Sure.
So then, once we sort of have that list of, okay, GAU wants the following articles open, you have the following articles open with alignment. We can, if we agree, we can TA and current contract language, have the reopeners on, put those in the pile, and then look at what remains. Prioritize the ones we both want to open, and then alternate and take turns on. Like you guys want to open 11, and you don't. Okay, well, we'll do 11 first because that was yours. And the next one, if we want to open 22, you guys don't, then we'll do that one. And then we can sort of exchange proposals. That way everybody can, in a certain day, we can kind of know at the next session, we're going to tackle this article and this article, as opposed to nobody knows, and then we don't know what to prepare. We may want to bring in a particular person, like especially if it's going to impact. I think we're talking about Article 4, and you know, exactly, yeah, we need to have the lead person there to talk about. That's a good example. So that way everybody can kind of know what to expect, and then because it's a big document, you can kind of know what to look at and really discuss thoroughly before the next session. So I mean, just to know as an overall sort of recommended structure, that's what we recommend how we tackle it. I don't know how you feel about that.
I think that sounds totally reasonable. Yeah.
All right, so the next one is probably a little more just practical in terms of how we would do it. My recommendation in terms of housing the drafted documents, be to use OneDrive and do them as a shared document. I don't mind setting up the shared drive. You know, within I've had no problem housing it in a dedicated directory that I would just leave that you guys would have access to in a shared one. The only thing that I would say is we would use that to sort of track the changes. And then while we'll share it, one of the ground rules that I would recommend is it's allowed to edit it without being logged in. In other words, if you're going to go in there and make edited changes, you can't do it anonymously. You have to actually. So there's two ways we can do that. We can just agree to not do that, or if you want to, I can only share it to specific people. I don't really care. Sometimes you may have somebody else that you're using to draft it. That doesn't matter as long as everybody understands and acknowledges. No one's going to be in there fiddling with it unless they're identifying who they are, so that if there's a question about what was edited, we have an opportunity to say.
So and so edited.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you can just share it to us individually on the bargaining team.
Okay.
I think that works. I think Brandon's online as well. So, you know, the five of us who are here and Brandon would be the bargaining team.
So the next point that we wanted to sort of talk about is prioritizing for purposes. So then when we get there, you know, just sort of a mutual understanding that if we've agreed that we're going to talk about that article on that day, that everybody's got that one ready to go. You know, and when we say, look, it's possible, I would recommend probably, depending on the length of the articles, as many as 2 or 3. So that if we hit because our time together is somewhat limited, if we hit sort of a roadblock or barrier that we can't get past, we have another article or 2 that we can move to continue getting work done. Because it's 2 hours a week, it would be unfortunate. It's so difficult to get everybody's schedules together to be like, well, I guess we're done for the day. Ready to talk about the next thing. So if we could have a planning priority list, that way we always have something we can sort of be working on. I think would be an efficient and best use of our time. If you guys are agreeable and amenable to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way we were thinking about that is that, we should it like before every time we end a session, we should kind of know what we will be discussing next time or
Right.
what we'll be bringing to the table next time.
Right.
And every session should begin with whichever team is presenting, introducing their proposal, obviously. But at least that part at the end that we should kind of have some idea about what's going to happen next time.
Right, I just think that not just a primary, but maybe a secondary tertiary, like almost like a backup, like in case, like I said, in case we hit some sort of big roadblock where it's like. Maybe hey, we need to legal opinion on this article, rerun it to something else, be like, okay, no, we were supposed to talk about this article. Can't, but here was our backup one, so that we can still use it productively. That's all I express. And then the last one is about sort of the modality of the meeting themselves. So, we've had initially when I very, very first started, and this was more of a conversation I was having with Rachel and Amanda, and we've had a little bit, is I think we need to talk about the difference between a public meeting and a public forum. And I think it's important that we sort of grapple with what those things are. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I believe it was asserted by members of the previous team that GAU's position is, and feel free to correct me, that anyone who wants to speak during bargaining is permitted to because it's a public forum. And I will tell you, I just fundamentally disagree with that interpretation. I do believe absolutely 100% it is a public meeting, and anybody who wants to come is welcome to come. That is not the same thing as anybody's welcome to talk. And I think we need to grapple with and have that conversation, especially in the light of the last time you invited someone to speak, and I really felt like what they had to say was very inappropriate.
What was that?
I'm not going to let my team sit here and be name called by a member of your bargaining unit. I'm just not going to do that. If it happens again, we're going to end the meeting. We're going to walk out.
So, I mean, I agree. Name calling is not appropriate. I don't remember what that was,
I'm not
but
my team sit here and be called immature. That's not what's going to happen in bargaining sessions. That's not professional. It's not appropriate. It's just not going to happen.
yeah. So, I agree. And like, if anyone from the public is speaking in that way, like I will step in and rein them in and tell them that's not an appropriate way to speak. But it's our position that people should be allowed, like this is like a free speech zone, and we should be allowed to, people are here because the conditions of their work are being determined, right? And they have a right to speak their mind on the process of that. And so if you would like us to kind of play a bigger role in moderating that, I think we'd be amenable to that. But our position is that every meeting should allow for up to 30 minutes of public comment. That doesn't mean that every meeting will have 30 minutes of public comment. But there are some things where, I mean, we are acting as representatives for GAs, but we don't have every single experience out there, and there's a diversity of experiences out there, and people deserve to be able to put that out there, and you also should hear what their experiences are, because you're what we're doing here will affect a lot of people, right? And so they have the right to speak their mind on that. And we're amenable to kind of moderating that. So like, we can limit speakers to 3 minutes if you want. If they are getting out of line in terms of, name calling and stuff like that, I can shut them down. But we do believe that in a public meeting, people have the right to speak their minds, and it's actually important that they speak their minds when it's something that's going to affect their daily life.
So I guess one of the things that I'll continue to grapple with is, are you effectively waiving your ability to say that when they speak, they're taking and speaking on behalf of the union? Because that's the part that makes it very difficult for us. Is because we're at that point, the bargaining session is ended, and now we're just having a because unless you're actually empowering them to state the position on behalf of GAU, I don't know what they're actually, because then I have to look at you and say, is that your official position? When you honestly have no idea what they're about to say.
I mean, I think in general, we will try to kind of, I mean, sometimes there may be meetings where like we know in advance what the people will say. Um, uh, but you know, if someone's at the meeting and they have something to say, like we're not gonna say that you're not allowed to speak. They have the right to speak.
See, I would argue legally they don't. They don't. That's why you have a named and identified bargaining. I think if you want to have forums where you take information and opinions from your members, absolutely you should do that. But when we're actually exchanging proposals and trying to work on language, that's not the time, in my opinion, that is not the moment to have anybody weigh in at a membership level on that issue. That should be filtered through you all to strike an official position to present to us as a team. I don't really understand the purpose other than providing testimony, providing a testimonial or editorializing, having an opinion. I can't imagine you want us to interpret that one person's opinion to have the same weight as what the bargaining team officially presents to us as a position. And it then confuses the matter for us because then it becomes very unclear whether or not you agree with everything they said or they don't. And I'll give you another example. For example, when I went back and forth with Amanda about whether or not they wanted us to bring somebody from budget, and she said emphatically in writing, no, we don't need that. And then you have somebody from the floor that says you're holding back your budget people and not giving them to us. What? Like, how are we supposed to come? Like that doesn't make sense because your people aren't necessarily privy to all the communications that have occurred, haven't seen all the proposals that have gone back and forth. And I just don't think it's a productive use of time.
So that's the first time I'm hearing about that. Maybe Amanda did agree to that with you over email or something like that. But I mean, I was looking at the previous ground rules that were agreed to with Ryan Fuller. That was the last time I know of any ground rules being agreed to. It does state pretty clearly that you would have a budget person there. But I don't know what your conversation you had with Amanda. It's possible that she agreed to that. So I don't want to relitigate
No,
that.
we don't need to.
But in terms of the public comment, so like in terms of bargaining positions and proposals, that is presented by the bargaining team. We're acting as representatives in that respect, right? I mean, what the proposal that we're putting forward, that's the position of the union. However, um, a lot of people are attending the session for the first time, or they're hearing the university's official position on various matters for the first time,
Right.
and they should be allowed to say what they feel about that and how that will affect their life. And I think you have an obligation to listen to that and take that into consideration when you're also crafting your proposals.
Bargaining, that's a public, that's different, like bargaining, you are representing these individuals. You're welcome to make a recording of them and put that in your presentation when you're giving your proposal. But for us to end bargaining on an article and then, oh, it's 1:30 with 30 minutes left, and now this turns into a public forum, we don't have any obligation to sit here and listen when we're no longer bargaining.
Well, I
And
mean,
it's-
what's the difference between if we record something and we invite someone to come and speak?
You are then representing them, and you are having some kind of control over what is being said.
So I think the main issue that you all have is that you feel that it's like uncontrolled and like people are gonna be
That's
unruly or
part-
something.
That's not.
Uh-huh.
This is not how bargaining is done. That is not bargaining. And you're turning to us now, you were very welcoming Patrick's suggestions on how to do this because you said you've never done this before. And I'm telling you that this is not, I'm telling you.
I mean, we've bargained before. We've never bargained full book.
Just because these ground rules were decided on before doesn't mean, you know, that is our position of how it should always be moved forward. You know, this is not how we do it. Not saying they do everything the same way that our other unions do it, but this is certainly not how we bargain with any other union on campus. And their opinions of their members are valid as well.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I will say that in the past, like people have always been allowed to speak their mind freely, and we feel that is an essential part of not bargaining in the sense of they're not presenting a proposal, but they are talking about how the proposals will affect their lives. And that is that is like fundamental to what is, happening here.
Really the language that we're considering. I mean, that's just not, that's a public forum.
No, they're not proposing language. You're proposing language which will affect them. And you don't know how it will affect them.
And then you all talked about with your entire, your entire group, I guess now if everybody's invited to your caucuses and everybody's in the bargaining team. And then you all come back and you're all saying, this is how we all feel, then that I suppose might be bargaining. But if we're done discussing something for the day. And we're done caucusing, we're done exchanging proposals, and then it just becomes a public meeting, that's not bargaining.
What's the
Clear-
overall?
Would you be more,
Chat. Regarding the thing with Amanda, she said she didn't need a budget person at the next immediate meeting. Because we had not even received a proposal from them, not that we never wanted a budget person. And then regarding.
I thought you didn't want to relitigate that. Yeah.
And then regarding, this is how bargaining is not, you're saying this is not how bargaining is done, but it is literally how bargaining is done, and this is how we have done it for years.
Is that person on your bargaining team?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so this is what I'm saying, it's hard, like, especially when it's over Zoom, it's like, we don't know who's talking, what authority they have, it's just.
so, okay,
This is
so
something we've done a certain way before.
if we played a bigger role in moderating who gets to speak, informing you beforehand how many speakers there are, what they're gonna be speaking about, are you okay with that?
I guess what I'm saying is that everything that's exchanged during bargaining, nothing should be said by anyone on your team that doesn't represent an official position of your bargaining. That's what we're getting at. It's not a time.
That's impractical. I mean, like,
It's the way that everyone across the entire country bargains. You don't,
nothing should be said that isn't a proposal.
no. They have to be, the people who speak need to be formally recognized by the union as being members of the bargaining. They have some level of.
So
authority.
no one except for the bargaining team should speak at a session.
Yes.
We will not agree to that. Yeah, we're just not gonna be. Yeah. And we would like,
Share their concerns.
They share them with you. And then you craft the position.
So according to you, the graduate assistants should never share their concerns with the university.
No, I didn't say that at all.
so,
That's what I'm asking. How should, according to you, how should they do that?
Well, I'll give you an example.
they're saying that they should. Basically. Okay,
You can,
Time and place.
Yeah.
When is it?
well, I was just gonna say that I actually have a standing meeting with JU representatives every week. That is whatever conflict, issue, concern that you guys have, you are welcome to bring and we work on. And that's a standing meeting that I have with JU every single week. That's not bargaining, that is problem solving, that's collaboration meetings. And you are welcome to bring anyone you want, and you're welcome to bring any topic you want. And that's been going on since December.
Not like you, right? We represent graduate assistants, but I feel like graduate assistants themselves should have the ability to speak to their employer and express their concerns.
So that's direct dealing, and that's really a problem.
It's not. It's expressing concern.
Well, this is the whole point of having a union, is like represent them and you bring their concerns.
so I would like to see where, like, what you are using as like your interpretation of like public meeting means that like no one in attendance should speak. Like, where's your interpretation of this coming from?
This is a bargaining session. This session is being used for bargaining.
Right. And anyone from the public is allowed to attend. Yeah. Yeah.
Not to be.
Yeah. Only to be seen, not heard.
On behalf of the union.
Yeah.
He's asking where you
So this,
come to that.
it is bargaining.
But where is it prohibited that anyone from the public is not allowed to speak?
To what
not the
purpose?
purpose of the meeting.
So
No, but that's fine. But where is it prohibited? No, I understand what the purpose of the meeting is, but I'm saying, you're saying that no one should from the bargaining team, no one who's not on the bargaining team should be allowed to speak. So where is that coming from? Where's that prohibition
It's
coming?
it's not productive. It's not productive unless
That-
they're actually sharing official positions of the GAU.
Well, you don't consider it productive, and I think that that's pretty revealing, because we absolutely do think it's productive.
I think it should.
When
And speaking. So then if everybody speaks, then everybody is an authorized member of the bargaining team. That's what I'm saying. It's like.
where is that coming from? Only an authorized member of the bargaining team is allowed to speak? I've never heard of that rule.
They're the only people that are allowed to sign an agreement. You're not gonna let somebody from your just random membership come in Zoom. They're not gonna come in and sign the contract.
They're not. We're not saying that they will. I'm gonna sign the contract.
Okay,
Yeah.
Bargaining.
Yeah.
So let me ask this. What if you had somebody talk from your member who publicly struck a position that was directly counter to everything you had said?
I would cut them off and tell them that like that's out of line. Yeah.
Okay, and we're supposed to then just discount that as not being your official position?
Yes, because that we're the official representative.
So why would you not meet? You're concerned about making sure that you understand and effectively represent your people. Why would you not meet with them in advance to establish an official position to share with the university?
We're not saying.
We cannot meet with every individual in advance.
They have the right to speak out of public. We're not saying we will only interface in this way. It's like, we can do both.
And I understand your concerns as well. Like, yes, like there have been times in the past, like actually what you have witnessed is not even the worst of it, but that's because in the past, your bargaining team was even more stubborn than what you are currently. And it was important at that time for us to get across the points that we're making by having people tell their stories about how the current agreement affects their lives and how a different agreement might improve their lives. And it was we felt that UF's bargaining team simply did not understand what our problems were. And in order to understand that, you need to hear examples of like what people are going through in their lives. But but I agree, there are times when it can get out of control. There are times when it's not productive. And that's why I've offered, like we can moderate that. If you want us to tell you in advance, like, okay, 3 people are going to be speaking, we'll give them this amount of time, we can try and work that out. But like, and a total prohibition on people speaking, we're just not going to agree to that unless you provide some kind of law which says, hey, at a public meeting, only the bargaining agents are allowed to talk. Like, fine, then that's the law. But
So-
I have no idea.
Are we bargaining? I guess my question
Yeah.
is, do you believe at that moment when you say, okay, I'm opening up the mic, John Smith is gonna talk. At that moment, is John Smith representing GAU or is John Smith representing John Smith?
If
He's
we played a video of John
No.
Smith.
And
would
please
we be
answer.
bargaining?
Don't change my question. Don't
The-
change the premise of my
the
question.
answer
Just
is-
answer my question.
Is he bargaining? Is he presenting a proposal? No, he's not. He's talking about his life and how that
So
will affect
bargaining's
him.
over.
No,
Yes.
no, it's not. It
If he's not representing an official position, then bargaining has ended.
sorry, bargaining isn't only when you present the specific language of a proposal. Like we're constantly having a conversation about, okay, we have a proposal, this is what it means, this is why we want it. And those are all things that are not directly part of the proposal, but we have to explain our position. We have to explain why we want something and what we'd be willing to trade and all these sorts of things. Those aren't directly like a bargaining proposal. But when we have someone speak about their life, that is we're representing their views, and we feel that having someone actually talk about their own experience is very important. It's different from us saying, retelling their story or just summarizing it in a way
So
that's not as a
I get
yeah.
entirely.
Yeah.
And at that point, what you're talking about is intentional editorial and testimonial that the union has said this person's personal story supports our proposal and is an effective way of getting the university to understand a proposal.
Sure.
I think that makes sense. What doesn't make sense is saying John wants to talk, open the mic, and you have absolutely no idea what's going to come out of their mouth. That is totally different than what you just described.
That's I will not prohibit anyone from from speaking their mind unless it's out of line. If they're calling you names, that's not right.
Do you even know if they're actually members of the bargaining unit when you do that? Do you actually go through any process to even know that they're actually an employee?
Anyone from the public is allowed to attend.
So you're not just saying,
Sorry?
What you're saying is the reason that you're having people come talk is to give testimonials about how this is affecting their life. And I think if
Well, okay, look. Yeah.
if you are on leave.
Right.
And you're like, we want to have these members come up and talk about leave and how it's affecting their lives and whatever, and then 3 or 4 people talk about that. I think that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I think that's like a great way to get your point across. But then if we're all done, everybody's done, nobody else has any of their counter proposals, and we look at the clock and like there's 30 minutes left. Now anybody gets to talk. How do you know that what somebody's gonna say is furthering your bargaining position? So I think
Well,
there is a balance that can be struck in terms of when the comments happen. One of my biggest problems is just like, if we're done for the day, then just saying that whatever time's left is available for public comment. How do I know that that is still part of bargaining? Because we're not talking about any particular proposals. Anybody could get up and say anything, is what you just said. So I think.
no, I mean, if it has nothing to do with bargaining, I will cut them off and tell them like, look, we need to have, whatever you say needs to be pertinent to the things that are being discussed today. But okay, to answer your point of like, what if they say something that's different from, so we are the representative. Most of the time what we are saying are going to be things that people are going to be agreeing with, and what they're saying is going to be things that support our position. However, if there's a time when we've made a proposal and like actually there's a GA who doesn't like that, or there's multiple GAs who don't like that, that's important for us to know as well. Like,
Rather than it being like during time that we could all be using to bargain and productively be going through different articles. That's kind of what I'm saying. I think it's just like a balance of how the time is being used and how your members' testimonials are being presented, as opposed to it just being, now it's just an open forum and we're done for the day, as opposed to being specific to whatever article is being discussed, and you as a group kind of figured out who has compelling stories to talk about because it's relevant. And then I think it kind of dispels some of the concerns about, is this actually, position that is being supported by bargaining unit? That's kind of, because it has gotten out of hand at some of the meetings, and no one has reined people in. And so I think I appreciate the fact that you say moving forward, this is what's going to happen, but maybe if we kind of lay better frameworks for that upfront, we don't have to worry about you having to be the bad guy and reining somebody in, and then they're accusing you of somehow infringing their speech rights. You know what I'm saying? Like, can we from the outset?
yeah, so I mean that's what we were saying from the beginning, is that we're open to determining what that framework is here. But what we absolutely will not agree to is like just only the bargaining team can speak, and that is like, we're just not going to agree to that, I'm afraid. But if you want more kind of rules in there about how people are introduced, putting time limitations, putting limitations on, what they can say. Obviously, I totally agree. Name calling is totally out of line. That should not happen. Talking about something has nothing to do with any of the proposals being discussed, like that shouldn't happen. But so, we want to determine what those rules and procedures are, but we're just not as a blanket, like, oh, no one from the public can speak. Like, that's just not something we're going to agree to.
I think the difference between the public can speak and only people that are going to speak on topics that are relevant, that are going to speak, and the GAU team that's sitting here supports what's being said.
We have 4,000 members. Like, we're not talking to every individual person there, and anyone can attend. So someone might be attending for the first time. They're seeing the university's position for the first time, and they have the right to tell you what their first reaction to that is. Like, to a lot of people, when they come to a bargaining session and they witness the university's official position, it's a shock. It is really a shock, like how you speak to us and how you think about us. And so people are angry. People are and have the right to voice that anger. And you should understand why they're angry. Okay? Um, if that anger boils over into something that's not appropriate, we will tell them that's not allowed and you can't keep going. And if that's like a real worry for you, like I understand that. Like that's not bargaining, it's not productive, and it's it's not professional. But um we're not gonna prevent anyone from speaking. Like that's gonna be, if you think 30 minutes is too long, okay, let's decide a different time. 15 minutes.
Look, if
But like
you line up people that are actually making relevant points, we're not gonna control or constrict any amount of time you wanna spend on that. If you want your entire position to be given by people that aren't on the bargaining team, we could argue about whether or not they're actually on the bargaining team at that point, but it really doesn't matter. It's not a time frame limit. It's what is the structure and what is the purpose of them speaking? Like, I feel personally that you have a greater obligation to listen to, filter, and ensure that the things that are being said in bargaining officially support and promote your position for the purposes of bargaining. I don't
okay,
think
so
that
we will agree to that, but we also want to reserve some time for people who are attending the meeting and want to speak their mind to speak their mind. If you want to limit the amount of time that is, and you want to limit what things that they can talk about, that's fine. But like people who we have not already talked to before the bargaining meeting have a right to speak at this meeting.
they just don't,
Well,
they don't, it's not.
they do have the right. You don't like it, that's fine. And we're trying to reach an agreement about what's acceptable. You have presented no rule that prohibits them from speaking their mind. What you're saying is that that's not bargaining, but our position is like someone speaking their mind about how a proposal will affect their lives is relevant to bargaining. And yes, it is more productive and so on when we kind of moderate who's going to speak and we know like exactly what they're going to say. But we also don't know every opinion that's out there, and people have the right to speak what their opinion is if it's going to impact their lives.
So you don't get to have your cake and eat it too. And what I mean by that is either when those people speak, they are speaking on behalf of GAU or they're not.
But we've said
No,
already.
they're speaking of
There is question about what GAU's bargaining team thinks. We will clarify, or you're free to ask us.
and yeah, exactly. So if there's something that they've said that muddies the water or something, I will clarify what our position is. But again, that person has the right to speak their mind. And if you want to limit, like, okay, only talk for 2 minutes, like get your point out, fine. But like they have the right to speak their mind.
Can I ask a clarifying question as well? If you all are proposing that we structure these testimonials so that people are coming in, are you then considering them a part of our bargaining unit if we like pre-approve them in some way? Because I don't know that we would feel comfortable doing that either. We would still want them, I assume, to be a testimonial, right? That they're still speaking on behalf of themselves, just in support of what we're saying, which is what you were asking.
And you're free to use any individual to illustrate your point or to accentuate a point or to underscore, or I mean, all of those, it's useful. It is used a lot to bring in people that aren't on the bargaining team to illustrate a specific experience, all that kind of stuff. That's different than just having open mic time where you have no idea what they're going to say and may or may not be relevant.
I understand, but what I'm trying to specifically ask is, if we go through all of that and we have to speak, do you automatically consider them a part of the bargaining
Unit?
Bargaining team.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
Now, like if we had our rent structure.
Yeah.
To clarify and explain the lead program, then she's not a part of our bargaining team. But we know in advance what she's gonna say, like we think what she's gonna say is gonna be helpful. So we're essentially authorizing her to speak on our behalf and explain kind of our, the lead program or whatever.
But
She's
theoretically,
not part of the bargaining team, but she's providing helpful testimony on behalf of the university.
Right.
I think just at least where my logic is kind of drawing from, right, is we're having this conversation about like, are they speaking on behalf of the bargaining team? And so if we've already said like a person that we've pre-approved who is in support of us can give their testimonial and they're not necessarily being considered part of the bargaining team. I think what we're trying to say is we're extending that logic out to more people than that, right? Is like,
Yeah, and you know the reason why this is like a public meeting is mostly because it's our bargaining unit that is going to be affected, right? Like, but you know, if someone from UF's board of trustees or President Ben Sass was in the meeting as a member of the public and they want to interject and speak their mind, like we're not going to stop that either. The reality is most of the time it's GAs who are attending because it affects their lives. And so uh yeah, I mean, and again, I don't think we're actually really disagreeing that much. Like, I think for the most part, like when we're gonna have like people speaking, it will be testimonials that we have like already seen or know about, and so it will be like something that we have like kind of orchestrated in the sense that like we know like what they're gonna say. On the other hand, I do think that we need to allow some time for like unstructured public comment. And that's stuff that we don't know in advance what they're gonna say. But like we also don't know we don't know what proposal you're gonna bring. Everyone's gonna have like a first reaction to something. And if you want to limit that to a certain amount of time, okay, only 15 minutes, only like 3 minutes per person, like we're amenable to like agreeing to those rules and like also like about what they're allowed to talk about, like no name calling and so on. But um, you know, we can agree that like most of the kind of speaking that's from not from the bargaining team will be like a testimonial that we have like already seen before and know will support our position or in a specific way. But we will have to insist on allowing some time for unstructured public comment and um and knowing that is not necessarily going to happen every meeting. We're not saying that like every meeting for 15 minutes people are just going to yell at you or whatever. Like it's just that we should structure the meeting in such a way that people should be allowed to speak their mind for a certain amount of time if they want to. That's all.
I guess the term that you use, I think is very important because at that point it is a meeting. It's not a bargaining session, it's a meeting. And that has a very different purpose.
Can you give us something that states that bargaining is not a public meeting? Because
No, it is 100% a public.
so you're saying, yeah,
You just said it's a meeting.
it's no longer
But now
bargaining
you're
as a
saying bargaining
public
is
meeting, but bargaining is a
Of
public
course,
meeting.
trustees meetings.
Most government institutions have public meetings.
Not every, meeting, there's not always like just like an open public comment time.
So
I'm just
we're
saying, like, I just, for the purposes of the session, I feel like we're going in circles now, but that is our position, is that it should be focused on bargaining. If it just becomes an open forum to, as you said, yell at us, that's not productive.
No, I agree. Yeah.
So I feel like what you're trying to get at is that once we've reached that time of like 30 minutes or however long of people giving public comment, it's no longer bargaining and you want to leave.
We want to use the time to bargain. We want to use the time to bargain. We don't want to artificially shorten the amount of time we're getting. We have to go through this entire contract.
And we have 2 hours to meet.
We don't want to.
We're saving 30 minutes at the end for everybody to comment. To me, I'm like, that's not an effective of our time when we have an entire book to go through. And, it's your job as union representatives you can have a caucus and collect their information and provide that in your response to our proposal. But that's not how, like, that doesn't seem to be the most productive use of the 2 hours a week we have to get.
So as we discussed in the beginning, right, there will be some things that we have that neither team wants to reopen. There'll be some things that we'll want to reopen on like a mutually agreeable basis, like we both have the same goals, and then there'll be some articles that are more contentious.
Sure.
So for those first few articles, like there's not going to be this kind of public comment. For the more contentious ones, like you have to understand what our bargaining position is, and that comes from our membership as well. And so we feel that that's important. And again, in terms of yelling at you, like as I said, like a lot of people when they come to a session for the first time, they are shocked at how the university
and they're coming in cold. They haven't seen the proposal that have been exchanged back and forth.
No, what they're shocked at is the disdain that the university has for us. It is
I don't know. Here to talk to us.
no, we have
Comes and hasn't been working with us and hasn't been following all the suggestions that going back and forth. That they just essentially need to vent. And to me, that's not productive and that's not a good use of our time. You know, when I think we've been working together and trying to, you know, like make productive changes to the agreement. I get it. Like if I came in cold off the street too, I'd be like, what's going on? But, you know.
no, I mean it's again, I think it's quite revealing that you consider that as just venting because it's not like they're just
That's essentially what I thought you were explaining. Someone's frustrated and so they were.
well, yeah, they're frustrated about how little the university tries to understand what our problems are. And and of course they're gonna be emotional about that. Um if you want to interpret that as like a personal attack, like that's not our problem. Like
As someone who's been personally never emailed by members of your party, I take things a little bit more sensitively.
threatened over email?
Yes. And
Okay, I mean, well, I mean,
so it would have been, you know, they have a right to email me. Okay. But I'm saying this is the lens through which I'm looking at some of this. Okay.
well, I mean, if that is the first time I'm hearing about that, and I'm sorry.
While you have the right to express why your members are frustrated, I think I have the right to express to you why I'm a little bit frustrated by the conversation as well.
Sure, and you know, if you want to forward us that email and we can reach out to that member and
Have a right to email me. My email address is public. Anybody can send me anything. It's nobody on your bargaining team, so it's fine. But I'm giving you my perspective about why I feel that some of this is not always productive. So I just want you to understand my lens as well. Right?
yeah, that's fair. And yeah, and I'm sorry that happened. That's not okay. No, and I totally understand what your concerns are, and I feel like you know, setting ground rules about what people can say, how long they can speak, like that kind of stuff, will address those concerns, and also having us moderate, you know, especially in the case of like inappropriate behavior. Um, I think that should address most of your concerns. And again, like we don't want to kind of stop the negotiations so that people can just like speak their minds and stuff.
Right.
It's like in the case when we have serious disagreements about like what our philosophies are. Like for example, Article 10, we're explaining to you our position is like, you know, we deserve a living wage, and you come back and say you don't deserve a living wage, you're part-time workers. Well, that's a big shock to a lot of people to hear that. And for you that is like something you think is like normal to say, but a lot of people are really taken aback when they hear that. And again, they have the right to express that. And I think you should hear that why people would be so angry that the university that they work at, that their official position is that they don't deserve a living wage. um so you know, you may not feel that that's relevant to bargaining, but we absolutely feel it's relevant to bargaining. That is affecting that person's life. Um, yeah.
So sort of coupled with that, then how about one of the ground rules is that neither side will intentionally misrepresent the proposals to their constituents? How about that as a ground rule? Is that a ground rule that you will agree to,
Sure. Yeah.
that you'll stop doing?
Misrepresent the proposal.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah. What does that mean?
Like, for example, if you were to blast out that the university was proposing to the tuition waiver, which hasn't been part of any proposal we've made, but you go ahead and tell people that was our position, like that type of stuff is going to stop.
Have we ever done that?
Said that it could. we no longer had a CBA.
I think the quote was the university wants to, I think was what actually you guys told your constituents.
When did we say that?
And we've said that about Feverly.
That was, you had it on your social media, you told your members that we were trying to get rid of your tuition waiver.
Well, we said that the tuition waiver is part of the CBA, and anything, if we don't have a CBA anymore, everything that's there is at the discretion of the university, including tuition waiver.
You or social media too and make edits, and it does say that.
Yeah, that it shouldn't say that, yeah.
Or if they make false statements.
I guess that's the big thing is like.
But again, that's not a bargaining position. That's not your bargaining position. We're saying that that's totally unrelated to bargaining.
Coming and making public comments, if they're not informed, and that's all they know about what's going on, and they believe. If they believe we have a certain position and they're not coming well educated and they don't understand all those things, and then they come and then you're not gonna preview what they're gonna say. You understand how it all kind of goes.
Well, if they're saying something that's factually incorrect, again, I can step in and correct that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll see how that goes.
So I think. I mean, but maybe you could put together some proposals for how you potentially,
Sure.
parameters you would put around this and we'll consider whether we would be open to that. Productive form part of it,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's the only way to resolve this, obviously, everybody understands their position now. Hopefully wherever they come from.
Just from my perspective, I sit on 3 other bargaining committees here at university. What you're asking is not followed in those sessions at all. So it's not, we're not coming out of left field with this. This is pretty consistent with how bargaining is done. At least at the university. I've been bargaining for 10 years prior to coming to the university, and I've never experienced this type of direct involvement at an open kind of conversation or forum like it's structured right now, which is just my perspective on things.
Okay, so we will give you some like actual written rules about this specific point about public comment, and hopefully what we will give you addresses your concerns and also addresses what we would like to preserve in the aspect of people being allowed to speak their minds.
Do you want to share, like, email them as well, kind of the initial other rules that you're.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and send it as a. Or not, just as you can review it. So I had emailed you that we would be ready to go with a standing meeting starting on the 22nd. Does that work for you? 9:30 to 11:30 was the time you had suggested.
So we will be still doing the ratification vote that day. Would it be possible to start the following week? Okay. Yeah. And we also need some time to do our research and bring.
Like I said, the document that we believe, and again, our intention was just to incorporate all the previous agreements. Our intention was not to make any changes in that document. So just review it, do a side by side, and then if we want to maybe exchange emails, but maybe by the 22nd possible about what we'd like to start with, even if it's a handful of articles, whatever that way, because when we get here on the 29th, maybe if we have a list of, if we started with these are the ones that have reopening, and these are the ones that, even if it's just that list, these are the ones that don't have intent to reopen, and these are the ones that do want to reopen, and we can put chart and be like, okay, these are the ones we usually want to open, these are the ones one of us wants to open, these are the ones we don't want to open, and then we can try to prioritize from there. Well, if you guys, that would be okay.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. I mean, you're talking about just the ones where we're not interested in reopening and kind of articles we would like to discuss in the beginning, like maybe the less kind of Article 8 kind of things that we're likely to have kind of agreement on.
Well, I think just getting that master list together of, these are all the ones we know we don't really have to spend any time on. These are the ones that we have mutual interest in opening.
Mhm.
These are the ones that you want to open and we didn't have anything, or we want to open and you didn't have anything, and then we can try to chart out how we attack them all.
Right.
And then maybe that first one, like if we could use part of that session to go after that lead part,
Uh-huh.
I think that my recommendation would be maybe we start with that, because we both know that we have a problem. Like,
Right, yeah.
Truly, we have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine for us, yeah. Again, I don't know if by the 22nd we will know all of the articles that we will want to reopen by then, but
If
yeah, we'll have a pretty good idea. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I want to change that.
No. Yeah. Sure, that's fine.
I think our goal is gonna be that specifically on that lead portion. I plan on coming, our team is probably gonna come with a proposal on that day. For that one at least, so that we have something to sort of dig into right away. Like I said, based on our conversation, I think we probably have some broad mutual interest in how we on that one.
Mhm.
I don't think that's gonna be a terrible. So. I mean, I could throw it, but I don't think it's-
Sorry, I missed what you just said. I was just writing some.
I just conversation for some months now about the fact that we have an issue with that article.
Oh, yeah, Article 8, you're saying?
At
Yeah,
least parts of it, I think we're gonna be able to establish pretty broad agreement relatively.
I think so. Yeah.
The sooner we get that one done, I think the sooner, it's gonna be better for everyone, because there's people that are right now impacted by that. As we sit here right now.
Right, right. Are there other rules from your team that you would like to discuss?
I think that we covered all the ones that we discussed. I don't think there's much else. I mean, is there anything else that I left out that you guys want to bring up? That's pretty much everything.
So we have,
It's different. It's just so different than doing reopeners. The whole thing is the amount of stuff that you have to go through, the
yeah,
amount of wordsmithing sometimes that it takes, the sheer number of proposals you have to prepare. I mean, it has a totally different rhythm than like comp reopening does. It's just a totally different animal.
okay, so we also have some rules on our end, that we would like to go over. So, notwithstanding whatever Amanda may or may not have agreed to before, I mean, our position is that we would like to have a relevant budget or Gator Care representative present to pertinent articles. And if you need, a lot of time in advance to make sure that's there, we can schedule, articles 8, 10, and 12 later. And so, so you can have
Sure.
time to,
That makes sense.
yeah. And um, and also I think both teams should share budget spreadsheets, calculations, and assumptions behind the calculation. Because in the past we just had kind of disagreements about what the numbers are themselves, and I think it just has mainly to do with the assumptions. So if we can kind of agree on what those are, then it's better for everyone. We're not arguing over kind of minor details.
We come and seeing what both sides are looking at.
Exactly.
Let's not remember that communication issue.
And again, this is something we already kind of talked about, just to make sure that, at the end of every meeting, we kind of have some idea of what will be talked about next time. And as you said, like, maybe have a primary thing, and if that doesn't work, have some backups so that the time is still used effectively. And then for some of these articles where like we might already have some agreement going for, I mean, I think it's fine to exchange proposals over email or over on the drive, I think. But we should not bargain via email or electronically. And even if the proposal has been sent or put in the drive prior to the session, I think either team should be able to reserve the right to add to the proposal if, before they present at this session.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I mean, my intention is that like there'll be one directory that everybody has access to, that those are basically living documents. The only thing that I would say is like if you're gonna make a substantive change, you might want to create a version.
Sure.
And we can talk about naming conventions if you want, so that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle, but as long as we leave it on review changes, then it should preserve whatever it is, as long as people don't start accepting them, because then it'll obviously.
Yeah.
The documents on, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. The
This is
documents on the
Brandon, who is a
drive,
member of our bargaining team.
yeah. They should have version history. So we should be able to have like just keep it as one file and have different versions, and we can have it set where they can be public, so for viewing, but only have access for editing for just our teams here. So that shouldn't be a problem. That should be a good way we can, as you said, it'll be a living document.
Thanks, Brandon. Okay, then in terms of cancellations, I think, we should not have any more than 2 cancellations in a row, and the notice of cancellation should be provided well in advance. 24 hours at the very least, but depending on how we are, who's booking the rooms and stuff, if it's done through, if you want us to do the booking of the rooms through Right Services or something, I think their new rule is 3 days. So we would need like 3 days in that case to except obviously in the case of serious emergencies. So yeah. And so and lastly, I think we should probably decide who's going to be booking the rooms and stuff like that. I mean, we feel that it should be a room where like the public can attend. This is a little small for that kind of session. And I think, in the future, we'll be kind of focusing on organizing and trying to bring people out as well. So, we would like to have a room that has AV setup and a room where like a sizable number of the public can actually be in attendance in person. So I don't know how you want to do that. Do you want to book the rooms or you want
Yeah,
the CAU to?
I mean, I can't imagine there's gonna be tons of people coming to full book sessions, but if you really think you're gonna, if this room doesn't suffice, then yeah.
I think there'll be some articles that a lot of people will be attending, and then there will be other ones where not so much.
Set up specifically for this room is not,
Not ideal, yeah.
because like some people cannot be the garden museum.
Yeah, that's true. That we've heard that on multiple occasions that they have a tough time hearing you. So just so that if people can understand what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're sort of, I'm limited in terms of what I'm allowed to book. So this would be probably what I would book if I'm gonna keep booking them.
Okay.
It's gonna be something more like this. If you guys want, again, something more sophisticated, or a specific idea what you want. Acknowledging your request on the cancellation. Acknowledging fully that has been your request. I would ask that you guys would go ahead and vote on that, because you have access to rooms that don't have access to.
Okay.
That qualifies as station.
Okay, that's fine. So it would be a 3-day notice for those kinds of cancellations.
Sure.
I can try to help, like I did with Weimer that.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Because sometimes there's options there, so I just kind of, I think proceed.
Yeah, how was the AV set up in a room like that? I know there was a computer. Were you able to access that camera though?
In Weimar? Yeah, that one was fine. It just took us a few sessions to figure out all the moving parts, but yeah.
Like,
Yeah, but we got that fixed after a couple of them. It was just a bit weird because we had multiple audio things going on. So
And part of it's moving too, right? Like if we know it's the same room every time, then it'll probably.
yeah, like we have this room set up. It's just not an ideal situation, but we know we have to set up a laptop in the corner with a different camera. So
Where is the microphone? With the,
It's on my computer. Yeah, it's not great. Yeah. Do we have any other rules? Those are the only ones I wrote down. Yeah, I mean, for us, the public comment thing was the most important, but I think, because we have such a disagreement, we'll send you a written version and you can tell us whether it addresses your concerns or not.
Okay.
You guys check the chat if there's anything that has been unaddressed. Bren has been giving running commentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly stuff that we were talking, yeah, related to public comment
Yeah,
stuff.
it was
Yeah.
before. Yeah, it wasn't anything. Yeah, we already moved past it. It's fine.
Okay, so I will send you an email kind of in the near future about the public comment rule. And maybe in a couple weeks about which articles,
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
Siri,
Yeah, Siri's not impressed, huh? Sorry? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But that's good. Yeah, question. Be the, and if it doesn't look right, then say, look, we want to start with going over this,
Mhm.
it's fine too.
Okay.
Because again, it should read that it just incorporates all the previous ratified agreements. If you find that it doesn't, I'm more than happy to.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. All right, see ya. So actually like in the email, the debrief link was not included.
Yeah.
It's in the chat, maybe. Or,
Chat, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
what we've done before is just send in the chat.
Yeah. Do you have the link though? Yeah. So everyone will be switching over to the private Zoom room and we'll be putting in the link for that in the chat shortly. And yeah, Hannah just put in the link right now.
Sorry, I was trying to like extrapolate logic that like if we have a single testimony.
If we have a recorded one, it's allowed, and if it's not recorded, it's
It's in the chat. It's 69.118. 118. We're muted, right, for a second? Or you're not. Good.
So I
don't think
asked
there's any-
Crystal
Mm-hmm.
if you agrees with
What?
about the public comment.
What? Because I talked to her yesterday and she was telling me the opposite. She was like,
Yeah, the scope to of bargaining, but I can't, like, I don't.
yeah, I put that in the.
It would be.
I put it in the bargaining drive. It's under statutes and guides. Yeah, perk scope of bargaining. Yeah.
Either way, I think we should, for what we've said, we should say.
So
Um,
yeah, I'm gonna switch over to the other one. Yeah.
we can